Hello, everybody. Yeah, it's been a crazy day. I have been all over the place. It's been a crazy week, and the music is going down, 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 down. Thank you, Cody.
Oh, what I'm here for.
All right.
Oh, God, I missed the wrong thing.
Anyway, so it has been a crazy day. It's been a crazy week. I have been busy. I got accepted to the Nebula Awards. I don't have something nominated, but they have panels and presentations the whole weekend, and I'm doing on the last panel of the last day of the Nebula Awards. I'm doing Geeks Guide to Literary Theory at the Nebula. So I have been like, oh no, I better bring my A game, because there's some serious minds that potentially are going to be there at that, because the Nebula Awards is largely a professional conference rather than like a fan. It's all either pros or professional writers, professional editors, agents, or people who are hopeful professional writers, So,
pros, P-R-O-S, not P-R-O-S-E.
Yes, pros, as in professionals. That's because we talk writing here. I understand. And that, kids, is why we study deconstruction theory. So, anyway. So, yeah, I'm really super jazzed about that. But everything else in my life over the last week and a half or so has just gone out of my mind as I have been going into theory. I have lots of thoughts about theory, new thoughts about theory and criticism, and I'm going to talk about that later after a bunch of this starts kind of simmering and coalescing in my brain. But I've been reading a bunch of criticism by Ursula K Le Guin.
She wrote
Left Hand of Darkness and Earthsea.
Earthsea.
Yes, she did. But she did a bunch of criticism demanding, way back in the day, around the time I was born, that's how long she's been brilliant. But she was talking about demanding that we have more writer critics. And so I'm kind of taking up that torch. But I've been reading Damon Knight, a whole bunch of other stuff, and it's just all this stuff in my brain. Anyway, so that's why this week, and I didn't put out the notification, so some of you may not have gotten the notification until like today. I didn't do the events on. Anyway, so, but I'm not going to talk about theory. I'm going to talk today because I've been noticing some stuff going around. And it's something I've written about a little bit here and there, and it's things that I've posted about occasionally about, follow your dreams, follow your passions, and everything like that. But it's come up a couple of times recently in actual conversations, but I've also seen it on social media where people, and some of them like seasoned professionals, and I'm not going to call anybody out because I'm not ready to, in this point in my career, to open up that can of worms. But they're seasoned professionals that when young, hopeful, up-and-coming, ambitious writers who are showing up, they're showing up at conventions, they're showing up at classes, and they're and in some ways I got this a lot in academia, being the genre guy in academia. And I guess this does tie into my theory stuff as I'm thinking about everything. Anyway, I'm hearing people saying, and conversations around what not to write. And I really dislike that. As somebody who does some really, really weird stuff with his fiction that has not taken off like to superstardom, but that has passionate fans, like who would have ever thought sending a platoon of Marines on a search and destroy mission in Ferry would lead to something that other people would think of as Hugo worthy. Not that it was ever nominated, but I do, or it was on any lists or anything, but I do know a couple of people that told me that a couple of people told me they nominated some of the deadweight stuff for the Hugo Award. Not that it was ever going to go anywhere, but these were people that I respect, and I know respect the awards not to give it out if they didn't feel that the books were Hugo worthy. So I want to talk about that, and we have sort of.
Auntie Cleo, that is the antithesis of what's going on. She said, wait, we don't get to write what we want? Who made that rule? Nail on my head.
Hello, Auntie Cleo. Actually, in my experience and my observations, lots of people they have big thoughts about what writing should be and what writing shouldn't be. And there's the two mountains that I talk about when I do my lit theory stuff. Is on one mountain we have the genre world, and on the other mountain we have the literary academic world, and at the tops you have people shouting and echoing and echoing and echoing, and they're always going to stand on the tops of their mountains. And those people that are at the top of both of those mountains are the ones over here in academia or in the literary crowd. They're going like, "Oh, don't do the genre thing. Oh, genre, no, you hacks, bah." And then you have over here, "Oh my God, you literary people. Oh, you snooty. Oh, why would you do that? Just tell a story and give me an adventure. Ah." And they're just going to yell, 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 yell. Then there's different plateaus and different places on each mountain where people hang out. And then there's the valley between the two mountains. And in the valley between the two mountains, there's a pub. And we... What?
Of course there is.
Because writers, right? Anyway, so we come down and we get people together in the pub. And we talk. And we get new ideas from listening to what other people are doing, or we just kind of hang out in the corner with our beer or whiskey or your tea or your coffee or your Irish coffee or your orange juice or your Coke or whatever it is, your drink of choice for whatever. So, and you think about stuff and you take in all the stuff that you've read and you take in all the stuff that you watch and you take in all the stuff that you've heard people talk about and you get these ideas. And these guys up here, they're going to be the ones who are going to tell you they're right and that something that you have, some idea that you have isn't gonna work. What was that?
I'll come play my harp in the pub.
Yes, I will write fiction while you play your harp in the pub, Rebecca. Okay, so and at various times in my life, much to my shame, I've been one of those guys. Okay. I've been one of those guys that has occasionally said either not to do that or you should do that a different way. And during my graduate work, I kept hearing that from other people, and I got to be careful here because if I'm too specific, I'm going to call out somebody who I really don't need to call out right now, and it would be awkward. And in my undergraduate, really in my undergraduate work, as a genre guy, I had teachers say you can't write genre in my class, and I kind of immediately bailed after they couldn't successfully define genre. They said, well, I don't know, and that they didn't. The teacher didn't read a lot of genre, wasn't experienced with genre, and so I was like, oh, so you're speaking from a position of ignorance in an institution where we're supposed to be expanding our consciousness and our awareness of what is artistically possible with the written word rather than closing it off. Gotcha. Okay, so you teach your thing, and I'm gonna go take somebody else, and I was much happier. So, but even in genre circles, I've gotten more flack in genre circles for my education than I have for being a genre writer in academia, which I didn't expect. But I had somebody half jokingly tell me that they thought I was ruining my writing by getting my degree, and I think that anything but.
I remember.
So, but I've been present at workshops and at panels where young writers will raise their hand and they'll say, "Hey, I've got it." Where we're talking about what you can do and what you can't do, and I'm trying to get away from hating things these days, except for like big worldly, like, I hate people. Anyway, now I'm going to step away from that.
Yes.
But I really hate it. I do hate it when somebody says you can't, especially with anything creative, but because it's my wheelhouse, especially writing. Can't is and if you're talking to somebody about a writing project that you've got going, especially if you're really passionate about it, it's a thing that you really like, I think this is cool, I want to explore this thing. As soon as, if you're talking to somebody about that, and as soon as they say can't, as soon as that word comes out of your mouth, end the conversation. Because whatever happens after that is destructive to you. It doesn't matter how strong your self-concept are, because we're artists and we're sensitive. But really, when we're talking about our babies,
this is why I don't talk about my writing projects often.
Right? Exactly, Auntie Cleo. Exactly. So, but we need to be protective of that. Now, if somebody says, "That's interesting. Have you thought about this aspect of it?" If they're asking questions about it, that's healthy. Because it's going to make us think about that, and we can say, "Well, I haven't thought about that. I'm just gonna do my thing and see how it plays out." And it's much easier to put a question aside to ask later than it is to get past somebody telling you can't do something. So this has been really kind of short and sweet tonight, but I feel that too often, writers have this opinion, and it's all it is. It's an opinion of what writing should be. And that may be exactly what writing needs to be for them. Okay, but just because it's right for them doesn't mean that their opinion of what writing should be or what writing is right for you. And that's the other thing that I wanted to talk about. So a couple of weeks ago, I was down in Southern California, and I was at a writing workshop, and I gave a couple of talks, and I was the inspirational keynote speaker at the end of the weekend, which was really, really awesome. And I talk about, whenever I go, and I talk about my education, and I talk about all the things that I've learned from it. One, because I'm really proud of the work that I did in my master's, and I'm really proud of the writer I have become, and the academic that I have become, and all the thinking that I do about writing out of that. And I don't do that because I'm trying to make myself out to be, look at me, I know all these things. It's more, as I'm talking about it, is like, this is my experience, and I want, not necessarily for writers to feel like they have to go and follow me in academia. There's so many tools out there to expand our awareness of what is possible with writing. And I had somebody come up, because the last thing, I want to be inspirational. When I talk about all the stuff that I've done and the things that I've learned and the stuff that I know, I'm looking to inspire other people. And that's partially, well, not partially, the big reason I do this show is because I'm reaching out into the interwebs, and we post it sometimes belatedly on my YouTube channel. And I'm here trying to inspire people. And I had at the end of the speech, and I'm hanging out, everything's breaking down, and I had somebody come up and go, "Oh my God, there's so much I don't know. It's so intimidating." And I took that and I said, "Okay, I understand. I used to be there with you, and sometimes when I look at the book, when I look at my bookcase and I look at all the books I have that I haven't read yet, because I've spent a whole lot of money on books this year alone that I haven't read yet."
This year? It's April.
Oh, dude. Yes, this year. I think I've spent like $600 on books already this year. Most of them I haven't read yet. Anyway,
They don't care if you read them.
right? Anyway, so but I said I understand sometimes I get with all this stuff, but nowadays when there's something that I don't know and I really figure out that, oh, I don't know that thing about writing, I get excited because there's that thing that I don't, and so I follow that. And usually what happens is when I follow that, I go down this rabbit hole. And I had a teacher that told me that she didn't like the metaphor of the rabbit hole because you get lost in there and you get lost in there and you get lost in there. And that's not exactly what that metaphor is. Because Alice, while she goes down the rabbit hole and has all sorts of wacky adventures and it really kind of blows her mind, at the end of her adventures, she's matured and she's grown. And so going down the rabbit hole is actually a really good thing. You'll figure out stuff about yourself, you'll discover things about yourself, and you'll come out with knowledge you didn't have before. So when you have stuff like that, whether it's ideas about writing, whether I'm giving them to you or you get them from some fiction you read or an article that you read or a book or a presentation or whatever, and there's something somebody says and you're like, "Huh, well, that's weird. I've never considered that." Go into that. Run into that, dive into that, go full, because you'll pick up all sorts of other stuff along the way. And there's all tools that you'll be able to use in your toolbox. And sometimes it's going to make your writing a little rough in the short term because you're kind of playing with these new tools and figuring stuff out. And take that also to those projects that kind of pop into your brain that go, "Well, what if I do these two things?" And they don't really mesh on the surface, because those are the things that are going to be really interesting, exciting. They're the things that are going to usually breathe fresh life into something. And it may not work out your first time through. So you'll have your exploratory draft, and then you may have to explore that story or that project or that idea a couple of different times before you really start figuring out what's going on. And and so those are the things. And you can take anything like Jim Butcher said, I can take any two random things and make a story out of it. And he says, somebody give me something random. Somebody said the Lost Roman Legion, and somebody else said Pokemon. And he wrote, what is it, Codex Galleria, 5-book series?
Yeah.
He wrote, and they're thick. They're way thicker than Dresden Files. And he wrote a 5-book epic fantasy series, which is basically the Lost Roman Legion and Pokemon.
And it's great.
And it's good reading. So shout out to Jim Butcher. He didn't pay me. He has no idea I'm talking about him tonight.
My buddy JP.
I've talked to him twice at conventions and blew his mind once on Twitter. Anyway, so those are the things. And what I'd like to do right now is, personally, I'm going to give a shout out to a friend of mine who writes under the pen name R.C. Litfin. She's working on the second book right now of her fantasy series, The Chronicles of Royal High. And I had lunch with her. We were talking projects and things that we might do together coming up. And she was telling me about her journey and some of the things that were going on. And somebody had come up to her at WonderCon and told a fan of Rachel's came up to her and told her that Rachel was her new favorite writer. and Rachel's writing a book that has speaking to people. And so you never know what kind of crazy idea that you have of mashing things together is going to speak to people. You never know when you're going to get that email from Europe saying, "Hey, I had a rough week and your book really helped me get through it." You never know when somebody's going to stop you in an airport or message you on Facebook or whatever. So do the thing. Don't let anybody say can't ever, because you never know when you're going to hit magic by doing the thing that you're passionate about. Also, and this is the big thing. Publishing is a business, and people are going to make business decisions based on what they think. And if you try and write to what is popular in the market right now, you're probably going to miss it. Unless you write really, really, really fast. So even if you're not making it huge, like I'm doing okay right now, but not as great as I was at one point. But the things that I've worked on have brought me a lot of joy in the creation of them. So if nothing else, at least you have fun exploring those things. And I just saw the
Brandu resubscribed and then gifted 5 more subs.
Thank you so much, Brandu. I appreciate. Thank you so much for the support. Thank you so much for giving subscriptions, being so generous. Please, everybody, thank Brandu for throwing those out to you guys. So totally appreciate it. Okay, so I've been rambling on for a little bit, kind of off the cuff this time around. Before we sign out, does anybody have any questions?
Comments?
Questions, comments, anything I can touch on or clarify or anything like that.
I can have one.
Okay.
You say don't let.
There we go. Ha. That's why he's the producer.
You say don't let anyone else tell you can't. Is there a point where you should tell yourself can't or don't? Like, where is that internal filter? At what point do you go, maybe this isn't a good idea, or maybe I should write something else?
That actually is a great question, Cody.
Wow, thanks.
No. I just actually my producer. So,
well, there you go. Have fun with that.
So, that's going to take some thinking.
I do that.
Yeah.
That's the tough ones. Oh, right, the microphone. I'm a terrible person.
So, I'm going to say if you're working at it for a while, and a while is really vague, but if you've been working at a project for a while and you're just beating your head against, it's like beating your head and it feels like continuously like that job you don't want to be at, maybe it's time to consider switching gears. And that reminds me, I wrote an essay about switching gears in grad school. But it's time to switch gears, and it's not necessarily give up on a project, but maybe you've been working on a project too long, and it's kind of lost its magic for you. I'm sure we can all think of writers that's happened to. The spark seems they've been working on the same thing for so long. The spark seems to have gone out of it. So it's really kind of a gut feeling. And I want to say at this point, yes, you'll run into projects or you run into things where things aren't working, and trust your gut on that one. Sometimes you have to put something away and get away from it and examine something else for a little while. And and then come back to it again with sort of a fresh perspective or new ideas or just even some distance, because familiarity can certainly breed contempt. So yeah, that's what I'd say. I'd say really trust your gut on that one.
Nice. All right, next one we've got from Wild7. Do you let fans decide what you shouldn't do? For example, if something isn't being well received, do you change it?
Not even remotely. And this is So for my own process, I am my book's first reader. Sometimes I have an idea of where it's going to go. Usually it doesn't end up going that way unless it's a Halloween Jack book, because Halloween Jack is smarter than I am. So I have to figure out what the end is before I write in everything else. So, but for everything else, for Deadweight, for Tears of Rage, for Jaludin, for Dragonbone Flute, I appreciate my fans shouting out. I appreciate when they are angry at something that I do. I do not let my readers affect my choices going forward, because ultimately I'm writing, the writing that I'm doing, each project that I do is the boss of the project that I'm doing. And so I'm making decisions for the integrity of that project. And if I allow outside voices, now that's not to say I don't have beta readers who then go and say, hey, think about this and think about that. But every time somebody gives me something, and speaking of which, if you go at certain levels on my Patreon, you can become a beta reader of my work. But I'll take that, but anything that doesn't fit with the integrity of a specific project, I ignore it. Because ultimately the project is my baby, it's my thing, it's my dream, I put it out. Now I know other writers who don't do that. They listen to their fans and they do that, and that works for them. Something that I just remembered a couple years ago during NaNoWriMo, I was working on a new project that I just started. I figured out I was just going to go. I was going to start it right at 12:01. NaNoWriMo, for those of you guys who don't know, National Novel Writing Month. The goal is every November, a bunch of writers all around the planet try and write a 50,000-word novel in the month of November. And I started in November, was it 2016? Or I think it was 2017. I started writing the slightly above average misadventures of Green Rise and Sunback, and I just started writing. I had character names, and I had nothing going on, and I started writing, and I posted it up on Patreon, and I decided I was going to make it a choose your own adventure. And so my fans would get to vote on which way the story was going. And then I came to a point where I decided I'm stopping that, because they chose a way I didn't want to go. I didn't see the story going that way. So I stopped that, and I put that on a hiatus, again, largely due to grad school, but I'm picking it up again now. And so that's, no, I don't. But if you have fans and that's what you want to do, if that's how you want to interact with the community that follows you and supports you, do that. Now, that's not to say that I don't. No, I'm just going to leave that. Yeah, I've got that. And then
from MFluke or EMFluke, if you're not writing for the current market, what do you suggest when agents ask for a list of works that are most like your book? But my book, I guess EMFluke's in this case, doesn't really relate much to others. Is that something to worry about, that they don't match much else? I'm struggling with this in my query process at the moment.
Okay, that's a great question. And here's what I will tell you, and I'm sure other people will disagree with you. I find a couple of different things that are kind of in the ballpark of what I've got. For example, Tears of Rage. I call it Game of Thrones meets The Three Musketeers. It's got swashbuckling adventure with guns. It's kind of dark and gritty. It's got weird magic that doesn't. It's not a magic system. And there's gods running around and people doing horrible things to each other. High body count with swashbuckling adventure. So it's kind of in the ballpark. Halloween Jack, I call it Irish folklore meets Jules Verne. It's kind of in the ballpark. So all you got to be is kind of close to give them sort of an expectation of how to market it to publishers. Do you mind if I ask which specific project this is, or would you like to everybody, Ian Fluke is a student of mine. Would you want to do a Facebook or meet for coffee or talk about it here in the chat here? Yeah, drop it in the chat. Up to you. So you decide how we want to do that. Any other questions while Ian Fluke is throwing that out?
Do you want to do this now?
I'll do this now and see if we got it. Okay, so we have follows. Jamie Heather, thank you so much. Kit Vix, awesome. 12 Steaks. Author Bree Moore, hi Bree. Wild 7, and subs. Brandoob, oh, thank you so much. Brandoob, subscribe for 3 months, and also for gifting 5 people subs. Thank you so much, Brandoob. We appreciate you. Truly do. Does that put us at 100? Are we at 100 yet?
Are we at 100? That's an excellent question. I think we're at 97 when we started. Those guys were immediately pre-streamed. So
okay.
I think we're 3 away.
We're 3 away from 100. All right. So, all right. I got to figure out some awesome thing to do when we get to 100 subscribers. Or not 100 subscribers, 100 followers. If I had 100 subscribers, we would have a big fat party. So, all right.
Ian Fluke says, I will ask you personally.
Awesome. Thank you, Ian Fluke. We'll take care of that. Yeah. I think I'm good on this. Any last minute questions or anything like that?
Anything to toss out there? That's good. You have taught them literally everything.
I have, yes, everything we have done. You are now wise, and so go forth and make good writing. The last thing I'm going to end with on this subject is everybody will, and it kind of touches on something that E.M. Fluke was in her question. Publishing is a business, and everybody's going to want to everybody in the publishing industry is going to, as your book is finished and what you're doing, they're going to want to know what genre it is. They want to know, market it. They're going to want to know. Now, Amazon has like so many different. Amazon is the king of genres and subgenres and sub-subgenres. And it's take all that and ignore it in your exploratory drafts. Don't get trapped up in trying to figure out the genre of what you're doing, because your genres are going to stifle your creativity. I think it was in 2017, the book, The Underground Railroad, won both the Pulitzer Prize and the Arthur C. Clarke Award.
I don't know what the Arthur C. Clarke Award is.
It's Arthur C. Clarke wrote 2001: Space Odyssey.
Oh, okay.
So big science, big genre thing. It's like you've got the 2 big ones are the Nebulas and the Hugos, and then you've got the Locust and the Arthur C. Clarke. It's kind of like big prestigious award and Pulitzer. So it's this sort of cross genre thing. I've talked over and over and over again about A Visit from the Goon Squad by Jennifer Egan, and it is absolutely a science fiction novel that doesn't read like a science fiction novel. It's very much literary in its approach, but it talks about chaos theory. It talks about relationships. It talks about the music industry's effect on culture, and it talks about social media. And it's like my all-time absolutely favoriteest book ever. But if I seriously believe, and there's a follow-up story that Jennifer Egan wrote, Black Box, that was told originally in tweets, and it's a wonderfully delicious cyberpunk story.
Would that technically be an epistolary?
Technically, yes.
All right.
Yes, it would. Ooh, look at the brain on Cody with those literary terms. Epistolary. All right. So anyway, thank you guys for hanging out. Again, I teach classes. Some of the people in the chat are students of mine. I love working with you guys. I'd love to work with more of you. Feel free to shoot me a message here on Twitch. Talk to me on social media. Send me an email. My DMs and my messages everywhere are open, so you can reach me that way. Let's talk about what you want to work on, and let me see if I can help you navigate how you can make that the absolute best project you can. And over the summer, I'm going to be doing a couple of new classes, group classes. I'm going to be doing a flash fiction master class, where we're going to just read and write a bunch of flash fiction, because flash fiction is awesome. It's great for experimenting on stuff that's just crazy and out there, because you're not investing a whole lot of time. So you can play with voice, you can play with tone, you can play with form. So I'm going to be doing that. And then I'm putting together a class that's going to span June, July, and August. The genre fiction master class, where we're going to explore a lot of the genre work that I did in my masters. So we're going to be that really kind of help really change my consideration of what is possible with genre fiction and where we can go with it. So, and I think that's about that. And of course, please go check out my Patreon. There's a bunch of stuff that you guys can read there just anytime, that you don't have to be a subscriber for. I just posted this last weekend. I posted another short story that's only available to my patrons. Ooh. The members of my patrons, or members of my Patreon community. Thank you guys for hanging out. I need to be a zombie and take all your classes. Yes, you do. No. Anyway. So I can't make a pun out of I get Gallowclass and Gallowvant, but zombies. I got nothing. Zombie class. No. Anyway, so we'll workshop that. We'll table that for now. Thank you guys very much for hanging out, for asking such awesome questions, and just coming and letting me talk to you about writing and nerding out, because this is my favorite thing in the world, is to nerd out about writing. I like talking and nerding out about writing slightly more than I like actual writing. So anyway, thank you guys. Remember, as you go and you go into those projects that you're super passionate about.
Andrew says Todsies. I disagree.
No.
Sounds like a weird article of clothing.
No. Anyway, so as I was saying, when you're exploring those things that you're passionate about, the projects that really get you excited, remember, as you do that, those, much like your writing career, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. See you guys in 2 weeks.